What's up, you guys? We're back again with the Cherokee, and we just got all the boxes that we were waiting for. We got the oil pan gasket, exhaust intake manifold gasket, the bolts for the exhaust, this gasket for the exhaust pipe flange, rear main seal, water pump, motor mounts, transmission mounts, fan clutch. I think this is a timing chain or something. This is for the steering, which is also going to get replaced. Timing cover, gasket, serpentine belt, the vents for the valve cover gasket, oil pump. What else? The thermostat housing is going to get replaced. These are for the upper control arm, freeze plugs, the bolt for the oil pan, the pulley for the, what is that, the idler pulley, I think. We're going to do some time lapse without music because of the copyright stuff. So we're gonna start off right now by removing the Harmonic Balancer. We got this tool from AutoZone, Harmonic Balancer puller. We removed the 19mm bolt with the impact. Then we were struggling to find the right size for these threads on the Harmonic Balancer, but they were these smaller ones. So this has a couple of different settings that you could put in. So just try to make everything center and even. And then you run this in and make sure you use this piece so you won't damage the threads in there. Alright, so before we pull the timing cover off, I'm going to show you the Harmonic Balancer. You can see that this was already falling apart. There's only like a rubber piece that holds the center section and the outer section together. You can see it's falling apart right here. So we're going to be replacing this as well. And what we did next was we drew the timing cover outline on the cardboard. We drew holes where the bolts are, and we're going to go ahead and pull them and put each bolt in its place. And then these lines just symbolize the 4 bolts underneath the timing cover. So you do have to remove the 4 bolts right here, right in the front of the oil pan, to get the timing cover off. These big bolts are size 16 and the smaller ones are 3/8. So this is the timing cover. You can see that the chain was already rubbing on this from all the wear that it has. You can see how loose this is. And also, don't lose this little pin right here. We're gonna need that. We're gonna need this. This goes facing out. So we're gonna, this doesn't have a right side, so I think you could use it both ways. Before you go ahead and remove the timing chain, make sure that these are lined up. There's 2 little lines on the timing chain. We made sure that the first piston was at top dead center. We're gonna go ahead and clean this first, the timing cover, and we're gonna pop this old seal out. And what else? We're also gonna clean the bolts. We're gonna clean the threads on the bolts before we remove the timing chain. Look how much play this thing has. Pretty bad. We just finished cleaning the timing cover with gasoline. Now we scraped most of this surface off with the blade. We broke this loose with the 19mm and the impact so it wouldn't turn. Now we're just gonna pull this out. With both of the bolts out, we should be able to remove these sprockets. And also make sure that the timing marks are still lined up, so when you put the new one on, everything is where it should be. Actually, I'm gonna slide it back on and show you guys. See if I could measure this. So I'm gonna put the measuring tape here and roughly in the middle of both sprockets. So we're at 4 3/4 roughly. and it goes up to about 4 1/4, so that's half an inch of play. So now when we put the new one on, we're gonna go ahead and measure, see if there's any difference. I don't know if that's how you measure these chains. That's just an idea I had right now. If you've been wanting to swap your cam, this is the perfect time to do it. Of course, you have to mess with the push rods and all that. Alright, so now that we cleaned the surface and everything else, we're going to go ahead and install our timing chain, male gear. This is the part number 3-385SA, made in the US. So this kit comes with the sprocket for this smaller sprocket. Comes with the little plastic for the timing cover. Comes with the chain, and it also comes with the bigger sprocket. So go ahead and throw the chain on here and line this up. So you line up the two little timing marks, and once you have them aligned, you go ahead and you slide them on. It's not going in. But I have a feeling that this sprocket isn't gonna work. This is the old one. Slides in with no issue. But this one gets stuck. I'm gonna try to figure this out real quick, and then I'll put you guys back on. We're having an issue with the smaller sprocket where it's not going over this guide right here. So we're gonna have to open a case with Rock Auto. So this is the shellac that we picked up from AutoZone from Permatex. We're gonna put a thin coat on the outside of the mating surface on the freeze plug. And I'm gonna set it right there and tap it in with the bearing and seal master driver set from AutoZone 57119. Just make sure it goes in flush and flat. You don't want to stick it. You don't want it sticking out a little higher on one side. Also, we hit the outside of this with the red Scotch-Brite just to get anything off of the surface. So now it's nice and clean. We also blew some air in there. So right here. Like that. Press it in a little bit. Now we're gonna get this one that's flush with the outside rim of this. You could even go a little bit bigger if you want. Yeah, this one's fine. I'm gonna put this in. We might not put the screw because the screw head pokes out a little bit. So we're just gonna set it flush and hit with the hammer. So it went in, but it took a good amount of force. I think the shellac is what's preventing it from sliding in easy. I'm gonna put less on this one. Hopefully it goes in a bit smoother. We finally got all the freeze plugs in. They were giving us a hard time right here on the side. I don't know why. These are from Melling. They should be a good kit, but I don't know why we were having trouble with these. I'm gonna mess with the shellac right now, but and the back of the head we used the brass, and then the kit didn't have a metal. It had a metal one for this one, So we had another kit that we had ordered for another Jeep that we had back then, and we used the brass one for that one as well. So instead of putting the metal one back in, we put a brass plug. For these threaded ones, we're gonna use this Loctite thread sealant, high temperature from Permatex, part number 59214. Make sure that everything is clean. Apply a little bit of this. This is like the biggest rip off at the parts store. You buy the big ass bottle and it has like less than half. That. And then for this kit, I'm gonna tell you guys the size of Allen socket. It's an 8mm Allen. We're gonna run them in. It's pretty tight. Okay, and that's as far as I could go with that. Went in probably like halfway. Yeah, that's it. It's been like 2 days and we just received another sprocket for the timing chain. So let's see if this one works. This is the old one, this is the new one. Same exact thing. So. Doesn't go in, or whether it does go in, but kind of forcefully. Oh shit! Yeah, it goes in pretty tight. A little less tight than this one, but I'm guessing we're going to have to install it like this, which sucks, but what can we do? It won't even go in all the way. Maybe with the deep socket. We're no professionals, but I'm pretty sure that that sprocket is not supposed to fit like that. Well, at least it lines up, but we do have to tap this sprocket in. I think that's all the way in. This one's all the way in. You have to make sure that these dots are still lined up. Alright, so we're gonna measure again. It is at roughly 4.5, and it has about a little less than a 1/4 inch of play. So that's like a 1/4 inch of difference from the timing chain that we took off. This is way tighter than the other one. We're gonna go ahead and torque this to 80 foot-pounds. Make sure the little this little thing is in here. We put a thin layer of gasket maker right here, black RTV, and we also put some on the block and then put the gasket on. We put a little bit of oil right here. Now on this seal right here in the middle. Now we're gonna put this right here on the side. Now we're gonna put the cover on, and we're gonna put one bolt to line it up. Just on here slowly. Gonna put this bolt right here. We're gonna run all bolts in by hand. We're gonna do next is put the harmonic balancer on, so we could center this seal right here. And these little bolts go to 60 inch-pounds. The big ones go to 192 inch-pounds. This is what it should look like once you're done. Next, we're gonna go ahead and put the thermostat and the thermostat housing. So for the housing, we got this from Motorrad. Everything is from Rock Auto. Part number is CH5180. Comes with the gasket and the little plug. This is the housing. The other one was pitted from up here, so that's why we decided to replace it. And just make sure that you don't have any metal shavings or anything right here. We're gonna go ahead and put some gray RTV up here, make sure that it's super clean. And then we're going to install the gasket. So right where it goes like this. Let's see. So it goes on here like this. This goes like that. So it goes like this. And put the gasket on there. Then we're gonna put some of the gray gasket maker here. Then insert the thermostat. This is the thermostat we went with from Gates. Part number 33009S. And this is it. It is a 195 thermostat. So we're gonna install it like that. And if you want, you could drill a little hole right here. It's not required, but it's easier to get the air bubbles out supposedly. Probably not gonna drill the hole, just gonna leave it like that. We're done with the thermostat. We torqued the bolts down to 13 foot-pounds. Now we're gonna go ahead and do the water pump. For the water pump, we got a GMB water pump, part number 110-1080. It comes with the gasket, see it in there. And this is the water pump. But before we throw the water pump on there, we have to install this Doorman water pump inlet tube, part number 56938, which is this. And before we install this, we're going to put a little bit of the white thread locker that we put on the side plugs just to be safe. We're gonna take this to the vise, clamp it here, and then run this in. We're gonna use our old water pump as reference to make sure we get this tube in the right position, because it has to go here and this has to point the right direction. And then we're gonna put some of the gray gasket maker that we use for the thermostat housing and torque these bolts to 17 foot-pounds. So now that the oil pump is installed, we put the clutch fan bolts back on the pulley just so we won't lose them. We also put these bolts back up on this side of the water pump. The inlet tube was adjusted a little bit, maybe like less than a quarter inch. We put the sensor back on the thermostat housing, and this bolt is torqued down to 80 foot-pounds. Forgot to mention that earlier. So now what we're gonna do is flip the motor upside down, remove the oil pan, replace the oil pump, get to the rear main seal, and install the new oil pan gasket. Now we're gonna go ahead and remove the oil pump, and while we're at it, we're gonna break this loose for the screen. And this is a 1/2 inch bolt. The long bolt holds it to this side, and then the small bolt holds it to this side, which is this one right here. Now we're going to install the oil pump. By the way, we got the tube out. We just put the pump on the vise and we test it off with our hands. This is what it looks like. There's no O-ring or anything, it just slides into the pump. This is the oil pump that we went with from Melling, M-81A. Goes with some instructions. So basically you put the pump in with the gasket. There's a gasket that comes with it. and you torque the bolts to 17 foot-pounds, and then you have to prime the oil. You have to prime the engine. But basically this is the oil pump, so we're just gonna clean the surface off, make sure it's nice and clean, also the surface on the engine block. Then we're gonna put it upside down, and I think we're gonna put this tube in first before we do that. So we're just gonna make sure that all this is cleaned off. We finally got the oil pump in. This was giving us some trouble. The pickup tube, we threw it in the freezer for a bit, and then we were able to hit it in here with the 5/8. We just sat the wrench right here, and then we were tapping it in until we were able to seat it all the way. So now we torqued the bolts down to 17 foot-pounds, and we have the gasket in there. Now what we're gonna do is clean this whole surface just to have it ready, and then we're gonna go ahead and remove this cap. Be real careful not to drop the cap, the bearing cap, and we'll then remove the rear main seal. We finally got the rear main seal out. It was giving us some trouble. We were hitting it on this side with the punch, and it wouldn't move, so we started hitting it from the other side, and we would just rotate it here, then hit it there, and then we were finally able to break it loose, and we just tapped it all the way, well, as much as we could from one side, and then we grabbed it with some needle nose right here, and we just pulled it out. So it's this one right here, and they do have a right side to put them in. So the side with the slot, there's like a little, this little like gap right here, goes towards the front of the engine. Let me slide the new one in, and the new one is this Velcro, part number BS40612. We're gonna coat this with some oil or with some soap, and we're gonna slide it in right here, and then we'll go ahead and do the bearing cap. Comes with this little plastic thing to guide it in so you won't damage the lip. We got the rear main seal in, and the Velcro comes with this little plastic. This end goes in there first. What we did is we coated this with dish soap, and we sat it in there, and then we coated the outside of the seal with dish soap and the inside with motor oil, and then we started pushing it in until we got it all the way to the other side. It went in pretty easy actually, and then we pulled this off. We messed up the first seal because we pulled this off when the rear main seal was halfway in, and when we went to push it again, we tore up the rear main seal with the edge of the block. So make sure you leave this in until the seal is all the way in. We cleaned the inside as well. Then we installed the second half of the seal, and we put a little bit of gasket maker on the edge. That's what the book says to do. And then we torqued down these bolts. First pass was 40, second was 60, and the third one was 80. We already cleaned up the surface. Now we're just gonna go ahead and clean up the oil pan bolts. We also cleaned up the oil pan, and we're gonna put our new gasket on there. It's gonna be a Velcro, the blue one. We got the whole surface clean. We wiped it down a couple of times, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna put some of that black Permatex, put a bead right here, possibly all the way to this, close to this hole on each side. And then for the front, we're gonna do a line right here where the cover meets the block, and then we're gonna follow that line around these bolt holes all the way across, make another line right there, and then we'll put our new oil pan gasket. This is the oil pan gasket that we got, OS34308R. So this is what it looks like. Pretty much everybody that I've seen online uses this one. These are helpful if you're doing it upside down while the engine is still on the Jeep. So you screw these into the block, and then you could slide your gasket over it, and these little things will hold it in place. But since the engine is upside down, I don't think we'll need them. But who knows, we might just still use them. So once the silicone is on the block, we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing over here. On the outside, just run a bead across. We don't need to run it all the way over here. And then on the back, we'll run a small bead right here. So the small bolts, we're gonna torque them down to 84 inch-pounds, and the big bolts, we're gonna torque them down to 132 pounds. We're gonna do a crisscross pattern all around. We're done torquing the oil pan bolts and we flipped the motor the right way. Now we're gonna start working on the valve cover. We put these little rubber things on so we wouldn't get any trash in there. And we're gonna replace these grommets and these valves. Well, this one's just a vent, and I believe this one has like a check valve. So we're gonna go ahead and cut these, remove these, and then we're gonna remove the valve cover, clean it up, and then we're gonna install new grommets and new PCV valves. So for the grommets, this is the part number 42344, 2 of these. And then this one is for the back. This one goes back here from Doorman, part number 47057. And for the front, they didn't have Doorman, so we went with this one. And this is the part number V432. We got both of the grommets out and the valves came off in pieces. See it right there. These are super toasted. Now we're gonna go ahead and remove the valve cover, remove all the bolts. I believe they're all the same except for this side from here to here. We got the surface as clean as possible now. We're gonna wipe it down one more time and then we're gonna install our Felpro valve cover gasket. This is the part number VS50522T. And then we're going to torque it down to 35 inch-pounds and then 55 inch-pounds. The valve cover is torqued. The motor mount brackets are back on. These were torqued to 45 foot-pounds, roughly. Red Loctite on the bolts on both sides. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put motor oil in the engine. We're going to pull out the distributor and rotate the oil pump so it could lubricate the whole engine. And then we'll set the timing on the distributor back to where it is. So that's going to be just this 13 millimeter. We're going to try to mark the distributor roughly where it's at right now. Alright, so we turned this a couple of times for like about a minute each time. And there's that little slot right there that you have to turn once you're done turning it for the oil to circulate. So you just get a screwdriver and you put that at the 11 o'clock position. Okay, so you guys could kind of see it right there. Not really, but right there. So it's at 11 o'clock. Now we're gonna put a punch on this. You see how there's 4 holes right here? So this one right here, I'm gonna put a punch through, something like that. Now this mounting surface right there has to be at the 1 o'clock when you slide it in. Let's say 1 o'clock. Oh, right before we slide it in, we're going to put a new distributor mounting gasket. This is the part number 70051. So you just lay this right here. Now we slid it in, and you have to basically see that this mounting bolt thing is at the 3 o'clock. So now we can put our little bolt bracket back into place and tighten the bolt. When you put your rotor, it should be right around at 5 o'clock. Move that. By the way, this is how we turn the oil pump. We have this little socket with the flathead, and we put it on the locking extension. Then we put that to the drill. And we put it in there. We use the locking extension so the socket wouldn't fall in there. And we turned it a couple of times, like I said before. We put our new distributor cap and wires back on. The rotor was actually facing right about 5:30, so it's good. We also had little marks that we did right there that line up, so we're good. So for this video, we replaced the thermostat housing, the thermostat, the water pump, the inlet tube, the timing chain, the timing chain cover gasket, harmonic balancer, what else? The oil pump, the rear main seal, the oil pan gasket, the valve cover gasket, the distributor mounting gasket, the oil filter. This is a new oil filter. We also replaced the one that we had just put on here, just to be safe since we were pressure washing it. We just don't want any water to be in there. We cleaned the grounds. We hit this with the wire wheel. Also here we hit this with the wire wheel because there's gonna be, I think, 2 grounds on here. What else? Clutch fan's gonna be new, so that's gonna be in the next video. We replaced the freeze plugs, all the freeze plugs. Also the valve cover grommets and PCVs or PVCs, whatever you call those. I think that's it. So next we're gonna drop the motor in. We're just gonna have to fix some split loom and some wires in the engine bay. We're not gonna record that, but for the next video we are gonna drop the engine in with the new motor mounts and the rest of the stuff that we have for it. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at @Yonke_OXC Films. I'll leave that in the description down below, and we'll catch you in the next one.